Hey guys, so I told you guys last night I was going to create a kind of a, like a teaching you how to learn. Usually I do this at the beginning of the semester, but I do have a lot of resources already posted kind of about stuff related, but I figured I'd do just a quick little video kind of taking you through some of these, how to study and stuff like that. There's a much more comprehensive one already posted on your Blackboard, but this might get you started just with some basic principles. So something I brought up last night is that learning has to be meaningful. You have to engage in your learning. What I mean is it doesn't mean you have to do all the work, but you have to make it make sense to you. So you need to apply familiar concepts that you have already in your head to the stuff that you're learning. So, some people that maybe are interested in pipes or cars, mechanics of things like that, they may say, oh, that's kind of like, how the arteries work in the body, and they can kind of relate it to that. And you really, a lot of times by doing so, it really helps to make it to like where it's not that you have to even sit there and memorize it. It just makes sense to you because you've applied it to something that you already know. So like if you came across a problem and you're like, oh, I've never seen this problem before, you can still answer it because you have those basic principles. So it's really important that when you're learning that you're not just trying to learn to memorize, but you're trying to learn to really think like, as a nurse, when am I going to see this? How am I going to deal with these situations? Most people don't really know the difference between studying and learning. They think it's pretty much the same thing. Studying information, though, is more of that route memorization, where learning is more of that like deeper, like really trying to understand to apply at the application level. Most people think that you would need to study harder to pass an exam versus teaching a class, but it actually takes so much more. And this is what I was talking about last night, that sometimes I really think that I know information because I've read it, I've looked at it, like, okay, this makes perfect sense. But then I'm going into class and I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, what was that? Like, and I'm like forgetting something. And that's what happens to you guys on exams, because a lot of times you guys know stuff on a memorization level, you've looked at it, and it's in your brain, but then a situation's given to you and you're not quite sure how to answer that. So this is going to teach you some ways that you can kind of like start to incorporate these things. So there's this really boring thing called Bloom's taxonomy that we always like to bring up and try to show you, and it's really hard to understand. So I've actually made my own Bloom's taxonomy in a non-traditional way. So think of a TV show you really like, and if you can understand the Blooms at that level, then maybe it will make it a little bit more understanding. So I made one for Grey's Anatomy. So like if you're at a remembering or a remembering level, this is like you can understand, you could list all the cast members who have died. Like, that's like a basic knowledge level. Once you get up to understanding, you have some knowledge, but you're starting to understand it at a little bit of a higher level. So explaining why Meredith is dark and twisty inside. Once we're getting to this semester, the level of stuff that we're doing is applying and analyzing. So we're actually saying, like we're creating situations where we're saying, okay, so you have this knowledge of Grey's Anatomy. So tell me, how would the team of Grey's Anatomy doctors handle a certain patient? So yeah, so compare this story. What's the reality of this? What events could really not happen? So really, it's more of like an analysis level. And then of course, we're not usually getting to evaluating and creating, where those are those higher level, but we're mostly staying around this applying and analyzing level, where we're giving you situations, and instead of just telling you what is this disease, how is it going to affect a patient, we're saying, okay, you're the nurse, you have this patient. What are you going to do? What's your priority? What are you going to do first? What's the most important thing to do? That's just a funny example, but it's just to help you understand that you need to know it at a higher level than maybe what you did before. So, before nursing schools, to get an A and a B, usually you just had to be on that remembering understanding level, but now we're up to this, higher level of applying and analyzing. And, once you get to complex, it's like 90% application. So how do we get ourselves there? We have to evolve into, this higher level. So I kind of showed you guys this a little bit yesterday, but this is the general cycle that you want to do. Preview before class. And what that means is skimming over like those major concepts so you can kind of get a basis for where you're going to go from there. It's always great if you can come to class with one question, maybe from your reading that you just didn't quite understand that you want answered for you. Of course, coming to class is so important. Ask questions, participate, make meaningful notes. When I say meaningful notes, that doesn't mean you need to write down everything I say. It means you need to write down, you need to take what is taught to you and try to make it in your own words. So start like kind of making sense of it yourself. So if I say that that pneumonia is an acute infection of the lung parenchyma, like that makes no sense to you. And I would probably never say that, but it comes down to that it's an infection in the part of your lungs where you're trying to breathe. And so what's going to be the problems? Oh, you're not going to be able to breathe. You're not going to be able to get oxygen in. If you can really understand on your own level, and maybe even that way doesn't make sense to you. Maybe you're just going to say, hey, it's an infection here, whatever works for you. It really doesn't matter how you do it, but it needs to make sense to you, not to me, not to your neighbor, to you. So taking notes for stuff that makes sense or stands out for you. And if you need help with that, feel free. I would love to kind of help to show you kind of like how to pick apart sometimes things that I'm saying or other things you're reading and stuff like that and help you with that. It's great. It's hard with our class being so late to actually review right after class, but maybe that next morning if you can, or that next day, you want to try to read the notes, fill in some gaps, note any questions you might still have that maybe you didn't really realize during class. Repetition is key. So we call these intense study sessions. So it's usually like, I would say no longer than like 30 minutes to an hour should be your study sessions. And that's like doing a little reading, take a break, do some practice questions, take a break, do a worksheet, take a break, because you definitely don't want to be doing the same thing over and over, and you want to vary what you're doing, and you also want to take breaks in between so you don't fatigue your brain too much. And I really think it's important to kind of do different activities. Watch a video, do a case study, do a worksheet, do some practice questions. There's so many different things you can do. Do a concept map. And then periodically you need to perform reality checks, like, is this working? So go try to teach someone and see if you can actually effectively teach them. It doesn't matter if it's a house plant in your house, but go tell the house plant everything you know about allergic rhinitis. Go tell your dog everything you learned about anaphylaxis. But see if you can actually teach it in like kind of like that breaking it down worksheet, where it says like, okay, what is it? How will I know a patient has it? What's a sign that they're getting better? What's a sign they're getting worse? How will we treat it? Any medications, diagnostic tests, that kind of stuff. And then, what am I going to do as the nurse? What are my interventions? What's the teaching I need to do? That kind of stuff. So if you can tell someone that from your own brain, no notes, you got that. And so you're welcome to always come and teach me too. You can always come to my student hours and teach me. Also other ways to assess your learning, of course, doing practice questions and stuff like that as well. I felt like I was going to say something else there. I'm sure I'll think of it more later. Maybe I was just going to say, let's see, do a variety of things. Make sure that you are taking breaks in between, not overwhelming yourself. And I always lose the things. I'm sure it was nothing that important. If it is, I promise it's probably on this PowerPoint later. But yes, apparently I don't know things as well as I thought I did when I prepared for this. So some other effective strategies, always solve problems without actually looking at the example or solution. Really try to figure it out by yourself. So like, for example, when you're filling out your assignments, your worksheets, when you're doing your case studies, when you're doing practice questions, try to do them just with your own brain. If you can't figure it out with your own brain, okay, but don't just go right to like, here, let me just look up the answer. Really try to figure it out for yourself. Learn as if you're going to have to teach this to someone else, not just pass a test. Always ask those why, how, and what if questions in all the scenarios. You can kind of give your mini lectures, like I said, to your house plants, to your husbands or wives, etc., to your little children. Even if they don't understand, it's still a good practice. And try to spend a little bit of time every day, if you can, even if it's just 30 minutes a day. Concept mapping is also another great concept. So this is kind of an example concept map. The best way that you can do a concept map, there's two things that you can do. You can use it to fill in stuff during class and stuff like that. But another great thing to do is a brain dump. And I think I have that, yeah. So for concept mapping, what a brain dump is effectively it's where you pretty much you're going to have your blank concept map, no notes, nothing, and you're going to put like the name of disease process, like maybe you're going to put pneumonia, and then you're going to fill in whatever you can fill in that you know about pneumonia. Now, after you're done, maybe you have like a bunch of stuff filled in one section, you have nothing filled in another. That's going to really show you where your holes are. Sometimes we don't know that we know something until we're sitting in that exam. We're like, oh my God, I don't know this. So this is a good way to see, what do I know? We want to dump our brain, literally just see right in this moment, what do I know about this? And so, pretty much what you're going to see there is like, oh my goodness, pneumonia. I know everything about what it is and the symptoms, but I know nothing about the treatment. I need to look more at treatment. Or, it might be like, oh, I know everything about what this disease process is, the treatment, but I don't know what I'm going to do as the nurse. Like, you're going to find out what your holes are. So this also saves you time. So you're not going back and spending all of your time trying to reread everything about pneumonia. Just focus on the parts that you didn't already have. You really just want to fill in those gaps. And you can do this again later. This is something great to do for some of those really big disease processes that have a lot of questions on the test, to really see where your knowledge is at. With concept maps, the point is not to fill in every little inch of space. You do not need to know everything. Really try to think about that kill factor, what's common and what's a sign that, oh crap, something is really not right. Try to focus on the concepts and ideas then, rather than writing out long sentences, kind of just focusing on, like little, like kind of piecing things together. So allergic rhinitis, sniffles, what do you call it? Uncomfortable, what do you call it? Can be seasonal, can can change up the house environment, like little things. Like I'm talking about like little snippets. Like try to like think of like everything you can. Like that was just a word vomit of me talking a little bit about allergic rhinitis. But yeah, something like that. You really just want to keep it simple, because when you're looking back over this, you're not going to have the time or the energy, and it's not going to help you to just try to sit there and memorize it. It's just the concepts you need to get of what does this patient looks like, what am I going to do for them as the nurse. It has to make sense to you as again. So my recommendations, of course, are to gently read over the recommended readings, watch any recommended videos right before class, skim over the headlines to remember what we're going to be reading. Yeah, kind of get yourself prepared. Figure out that one question, write it down, see if you can answer it, listen, participate, try to take good notes. After class, again, try to find some time that day to even just look over and kind of review your notes, see if there's anything that didn't make sense. And then start incorporating at least 3, like 15 to 30 minute intense study sessions into your day. Teach it to preach it, find a study group, start teaching to each other. And doing practice questions is great, but writing your own practice questions, you don't know how hard it is to write a question until you try to write one. So let me know if you ever try it. I sometimes make my students do this for clinical makeup work, but it's really hard. Like, because if you have to write a question, you not only have to figure out what the correct answer is, but also some distractors. What are some answers that are incorrect, but that other people would actually try to select? All right. That's it. Hopefully this helps to get you started a little bit on how to study. I can definitely go more in depth about this if you want specific strategies, or you can come tell me, hey, this is what I'm doing. What do you think of it? I'd love to help. Just let me know if you guys ever want to meet and discuss this. I'm always available, it seems, right? So thanks for listening. Bye.